Hey guys, Ramsey here with the Rajathon YouTube channel, and wanted to do a review on a book and a movie. Went ahead and read the book, then I watched the movie. Something that I don't always do. I try. When I did Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, I did that. And so this is One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest by Ken Kesey. Sorry. From what I can tell, this book was a kind of a callback to his time spending some time in a mental institution. A dramatic telling of his time there. So from what I was researching, I need to watch some of the documentaries on it, but it was basically his therapy to get it out, his unhappy experience in a mental institution. So for the whole story, we live in the mind of Chief Bromden. He is a very, very tall Native American man from the Pacific Northwest. This story is set in Oregon, and he's been in this mental institution for years, pretending he is a deaf mute, mostly because people just assumed that he was a deaf mute. Not anything he did on purpose. He just felt people didn't listen to him, so he just quit talking, and everybody just assumed he was a deaf mute. He never said he was. He never wrote down any paperwork that he was. He just stopped talking because people weren't listening, and he was assumed to be a deaf mute. And it's a big part of the story. He has unfettered access to the rest of everything because it's assumed that what he says is never going to go anywhere else. And so he has an inner struggle on, should I talk or shouldn't I? Like, he wants to do things, but he knows that if he does do things, people will realize he's not who he's pretending to be, and kind of creates the situation. He also has very vivid hallucinations. He believes that the mental institution, they actually go and they put robots in your brain or machines in your brain. He spends a lot of time where he's just in his own mind. They usually put him to sweeping in the hallway. There is some really, really tough stuff on race. Like, if you're very sensitive to talk about race, a lot of times the African-American orderlies are called the black boys, or I don't know if the N-word's ever used. Maybe once. It's definitely not a sensitive book where you look at it and you go, oh, that's racially sensitive. It's not. He's called an Indian the whole way through. He's never called a Native American. His father was the chief of his tribe. That's what he's called, chief. We never get his first name. We just get Chief Bromden, which is his last name. I'm not exactly sure what tribe he would be from. I know the Blackfoot tribe is a bit more to the east of the coast, where he talked about his family were salmon farmers. Like, they would go and they'd catch all the salmon and they'd sell salmon. So I believe that's the tribe that did the totem poles, kind of Pacific Northwest up into Canada. Not quite Inuit tribe, but just below that on the Pacific Northwest. So everything's really shook up. They're kind of in this little world where Nurse Ratched, which for the longest time I thought it was Ratchet, like the tool. You turn it and then you go back and it click, 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 turn it, click. I use a ratchet all the time. I just assumed it was Ratchet. It's actually Ratched with a D on the end. She is in control of everything in the ward. She's even over the doctor that comes in and does therapy. She tells him what to do 9 times out of 10. She has all of the nurses and the orderlies doing what they're supposed to be doing. She manipulates people mentally. Like, will go and find your weakness, actually encourage other inmates to write down things that you have done so that she can bring them up in group meetings and gain more power over you. When I did my Goodreads review, I kind of wrote it up as it's a book about a power struggle. It's a group of men because it's a men's ward, and the nurse is a woman. And so there's that level of power struggle in the 1960s. There's also that level of power where she has power over them, and she does not want to give it up. And then a new man comes in, McMurphy, and McMurphy wants to get the power. He's used to being in control. He's used to being in charge. He's a gambler. He's a womanizer. He's the guy that comes in and he's boisterous. He's the guy you want to hang out with, but you don't really want to introduce to your wife. He's like that guy that you're like, oh man, he's fun to hang out with, but like when he says stuff, you're like, God, man, maybe I shouldn't hang out with this guy. We've all kind of know that person, like that person that you're like, every time you recollect a story about this person, you're like, man, that guy, he's a lot of fun, but I'm sure glad I don't hang out with him anymore. And that's what I got from McMurphy. That's who I thought McMurphy was. The guy that after too much time with him, you're like, man, I just don't like that guy anymore. But at little doses, he's a lot of fun. And so he, in the movie, is played by Jack Nicholson. And Nicholson does a really good job with it. I don't like the way that they took the movie because it was... you didn't spend as much time with Bromden, which I love the way that Bromden described things. He spent so much time in his head, and he had great thoughts. If they'd have done a voiceover narration, I don't like that in most movies, but I think I would have really enjoyed it in that one, just because of how his thoughts were presented. At one point, he actually has a hallucination where he's laying in his bed, and he believes that the whole ward goes down into a machine, and that the machine is run by a bunch of robots, and the robots are taking the men and throwing them into the machine. And it's vividly described in a way that he's having this hallucination, and he's tied to his bed, can't move, freaked out because he believes the robots are going to come and throw him into the machine next. Like, his hallucinations were some of my favorite part of the book, and we get none of that in the movie. And then he's kind of relegated as just the big guy. He's strong, but he in the book has one of the most powerful moments of the whole book at the end. And in the movie, he has a powerful moment, but it's not the same moment. It just didn't translate as well, if that makes any sense. And I enjoyed the movie. I think if I'd only seen the movie, I'd be like, oh, that was good. But reading the book and then watching the movie directly after, I found myself going, it could have been better. Now, Jack Nicholson, he does a great performance. I recently watched The Shining. I've just watched this one. He's got some, like, A Few Good Men. He's one of those actors that can really pull a performance out. And I think he does such a great job. And I think if they'd have had a Chief Bromden, who he's a guy I've never heard of, the guy that played him in the movie, if maybe he had a more powerful character, maybe a better actor, which it's hard to find, a very tall, very built Native American man. I don't think there's very many in the acting world. That may be his only movie. And so that was tough. And, like, he wasn't exactly what you would get, and you can't do that with movies. I know that. I do know that. Like, Jack Nicholson was not exactly the guy who I'd pictured in my mind. Some of, like, Christopher Lloyd was in the movie. The guys in the background were really, really good. Some of the really tough moments too were kind of cut out. Like the fishing trip was one of the best parts of the book for me, because McMurphy had to really politic to get that fishing trip going. He had to get the doctor on his side. He had to get different guys going so he could afford to do the fishing trip. When we do it in the movie, he basically steals a school bus and takes them on a fishing trip. And it's cool, but it's not the fishing trip that we had, like, leading up to it. He had to do a petition and sign it and get 10 guys to sign the petition. He had to get the doctor to sign off on it. He had to get 2 cars. He had to get all these things set up. And it was that power struggle between him and Nurse Ratched that was so interesting. And you saw the warring in Chief Bromden's mind as he's like, should I go on this fishing trip? Should I not go on this fishing trip? Should I put myself out there and maybe get myself on the wrong side of Nurse Ratched? And so he just had so much back and forth with that fishing trip. And then the fishing trip was so rewarding. People were catching fish. The doctor fought forever and ever with this 300-pound grouper. And it was like a celebratory group thing where they all caught this giant fish. And they took the fish home. And then after that moment, you saw, it was like McMurphy was just done. Like, he had expended all his energy getting that done. And then what happens to him after, it makes so much more sense. And then I'm going to do a spoiler on the very end, at the end. So if you guys want to hop off now, thank you for watching this video. It was a fun book to read. I think you should try it. It can trigger a few people, and I understand that. That's kind of tough sometimes. But I'm going to go to the very end in this spoiler. Billy, the stuttering kid, when he has that moment with the lady in the room, and he comes out and he's not stuttering. He does not stutter anymore. His stutter is gone. He's self-confident. McMurphy gave him that confidence. And then Nurse Ratched pulled that string. What will your mother say? If I tell your mother that you had sex with a woman, what would your mother say? And she pulled that string, and he went and committed suicide. That was so demoralizing. And you can see, like, McMurphy goes to kill her because he had helped. He had made this young man better. like he had helped him. He wasn't cured. No, he wasn't cured. But he had given him confidence. He had given him the ability to maybe leave the ward, maybe lead a productive life. And Nurse Ratched, because she didn't have that power, she said, but Billy, what if I tell your mother? What if I tell your mother? And is literally kills the man. Like, he commits suicide. But she is the domino that tips him. And I understand why McMurphy did it. And then when they lobotomized him, it just felt like every good feeling from that fishing trip just was gone. Like, every good emotion and thought was gone. And that didn't play as well in the movie. It did play, but it didn't play as well in the movie. And so when I was getting near the end of the movie, I was like, oh, okay, you know. And then when Chief Bromden has to kill McMurphy, because that's not the McMurphy that they knew. Like, his hallucinations, he didn't even believe. He thought they put in a replacement. Like, that was not even him. So he had to kill the fake because McMurphy would hate the fake being in his place. And then realizing as he fought back that it was McMurphy, but it wasn't McMurphy. You know what I'm saying? Like, that was powerful. That was amazing. That was awesome. And I'm always going to look fondly on this book. It's a short book, less than 300 pages. And I think everybody should give it a shot if you are comfortable with those kind of things that I talked about earlier. So subscribe to the video. Talk to you guys next time. I'm going to go take this DVD back to the library. Talk to you guys next time. Bye.